My name is Samantha McGavin. I am Interpares' Executive Director, and I am joining you today from the Indigenous Territory of the Anishinaabe people in Ottawa, Canada. And we are here to shine a light on the important role of independent media in what is known as the Spring Revolution in Burma, also known as Myanmar. We just recently marked the 4th anniversary of the military coup d'etat that ended 5 years of democratically elected government after decades of military dictatorship. That coup d'etat was met with massive peaceful resistance that was then violently suppressed by the military junta. As the result of the crackdown, many protesters took up arms to expel the junta militarily, joining those who had long been fighting for a federal, inclusive democracy. Over the past 4 years, the Burma Army has lost military control over much of the country's territory, particularly in the countryside. Pro-democracy forces have been building new governance structures despite ongoing and increasing attacks against civilians and infrastructure. Despite increased security risks for journalists and displacement within the country, independent media has been steadfast in reporting on the conflict and on efforts to build democracy from the grassroots up. Interpares has been working in solidarity with conflict-affected people from Burma, particularly ethnic or indigenous people, for over 30 years. We raise funds, political support, and public awareness in Canada for civil society organizations who are meeting the needs of today while contributing to building peaceful, democratic, and inclusive futures. This includes health organizations, women's rights organizations, human rights and environmental groups, community development groups, and advocacy networks. It also includes independent media groups, 2 of whom are featured here today. I'll now pass the mic to Professor Matthew Pearson from Carleton University's School of Journalism and Communication. Professor Pearson is a volunteer expert advisor with Interpares' Burma program, contributing his time and expertise on trauma-informed journalism to Interpares and our media partners. As part of this volunteer role, he has offered workshops to several of our media partners on this topic. We had the pleasure of traveling together last spring in this respect. I'll now pass it over to you.
Thank you, Sam. And good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm so pleased to be here to participate in this event. As Sam said, my name is Matthew Pearson. I teach journalism at Carleton University School of Journalism and Communication in Ottawa. Ottawa was one of the places where I spent a big chunk of my time as a reporter. I was a journalist for the Ottawa Citizen and CBC's Parliamentary Bureau. And along the way in my journey, I became interested in the coverage of traumatic events and the people affected by them. And this work has involved leading workshops and training sessions with newsrooms and other organizations in Canada and in other countries. And so it was an amazing opportunity to work with Interpares' Burma team and to work specifically with journalists who are covering the war in Burma, many of whom work in newsrooms in neighboring countries. Many of these journalists are working outside of Burma or Myanmar in countries like Thailand, India, and Bangladesh. And so I'm very happy to be here. I'm happy for the broader public to get a moment to hear from some of the journalists working on the ground. And I think that's where I'd like to get to right now. I will say maybe just some housekeeping off the top. We are going to have, we have 3 panelists today who are joining us. I'll introduce them in a moment. After they introduce themselves, I have some prepared questions that I'll ask them to reflect on. There is also the chat function. So you are, if you have a question for the panelists, you're welcome to put a question there. We may not be able to get to all of them. We will probably have time for 1 or 2 questions from the audience. And so let us begin. I am happy to start. I will invite Tin Tin Nyo from Burma News International to introduce herself. Welcome, Tin Tin Nyo, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Professor. Really honored to be in this panel and also to be able to talk about and then representing the voices of the journalists and then the Myanmar media who are having different kinds of risks and struggles. So my name is Tin Tin Nyo, and I'm working as the Managing Director for the Burma News International. So Burma News International is a media network that have been existing more than 20 years. And we have 15 media outlets as a members, and then most of them are ethnic media outlets. So they are reporting from different states and region all across the country. So for the BNI, aside from supporting independent media and also the media development, we are also outspoken and also continually talking about media freedom, because that's having the things that we lack under the military junta. So that's why we promote and we also advocate for the media freedom, and then also like a freedom of expressions and the rights to information, which is very important for the media itself, as well as the journalists, and then also the public to continue to access to information. Aside from the BNI, also trying to promote peace and human rights in the country, and also promote the voices of the ethnic minorities, including different gender identities, and also gender equal representation is one of the core focus for the BNI as well. So because of this work, BNI received an award, recognizes our work in promoting peace and also like ethnic minority voices from the Hiroshima Foundation, last 2023. So really, thank you so much for everyone.
All right. Tin Tin Nyo, thank you so much for being here, and congratulations on that award. We look forward to hearing more about your work with BNI. Next, I would like to introduce Nan Paw Gay from the Karen Information Center. Good morning, Nan Paw Gay.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, thank you, Matthew, for inviting me. So this is the good opportunity for me to share our work in the country. So my name is Nan Paw Gay, working with the Current Information Center, one of the current ethnic media, which based in the exile for 25 years. So our media outlets is formed in 1997 because of the voiceless of our ethnic people. So we are important to be the independent media in the community. So it is not only the current ethnic, there are many ethnic nationalities in the Burma. So KIC is already nearly 28 years. So we produce the multimedia productions. It is not only the main Burmese language, but especially in current language, and also in English version for the international communities to understand and to know about what is the current people situations and their rights and voice, and also what is happening in a current area. So we are also collaborating and networking with other ethnic media, because KIC is one of the Burma News International members. So we are as a member of BNI since 2009. So it's very glad to have a chance. And at the same time, I'm also the one of the board of editor of BNI. So since 2023 December, we also found the Independent Press Council Myanmar. Because of the coup, we lost the freedom of expression. So we need to have the governing body to stand for the independent Myanmar media as a council. So I'm also responsible for the chairperson of the Independent Press Council Myanmar. So thank you very much for for my introduction. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nan Paw Gay. And I look forward to hearing more about the Independent Press Council of Myanmar. Our final panelist this morning, coming from the Democratic Voice of Burma, is Aye Chan Naing. Please welcome, sir.
Thank you, Professor Matthew, and thank you, Interpares, for giving us a chance to introduce ourselves in this conference. Just like my two previous sisters from Burma, DVB is something similar in that situation. My name is Aye Chan. I'm a chief editor for Democratic Voice of Burma. DVB started almost like over 30 years ago as a shortwave radio station in Oslo, in Norway, basically to provide unbiased and counter the Burmese military one-sided propaganda. So our mission is quite clear from the beginning to provide unbiased news and information to people of Burma, to promote ideas of democracy, human rights, and also to promote the diversity and also inclusiveness. That has been our main mission, and stick to the responsible journalism. As I said, we started as a shortwave radio far away from Burma, and then we extended into satellite television around 2005. And we have been trying to get information out of Burma for almost 20 years, and it had been a pretty difficult. And a lot of journalists that we had at the time in Burma have been in prison. But when we see the opening in Burma in 2012, we try to move back in. Our main aim is, to operate from inside Burma. We are only in exile because we cannot operate without fear of getting arrested, in prison, and torture. So the minute that we saw the opening up, then we moved back into Burma, and we started operating from within the country. And my main point is, while we were doing from exile, we couldn't meet in person for our audience. But when we were able to meet our audience back in Burma, we have seen how much appreciate what we have been doing from the exile. They are totally isolated. Their eyes were closed, their ear was not able to hear, and there was no freedom of expression. And what the exile media organization doing, it's really helpful, and they really value for what we have been doing. Unfortunately, we had to be back in exile, and this is my second year in exile. So we all had to move again in 2021 after the military coup. And some of my colleagues, journalists who joined for the first time in exile, they asked me how long it's going to take before we can go back. And I said, I don't know, because in my first time, it took 20 years. And I don't know this time, but we just have to do our job. And I hope it's not going to be that long before we can go back again.
Aye Chan Naing, thank you so much for joining us and for reminding us already about the challenges of operating in exile, which is something that I hope that we discuss more about. As Sam said off the top, the fourth anniversary of the military coup has just passed in early February. And so where I wanted to begin was by asking each of you if you could set the scene where you are or where your journalists are. What is the situation on the ground today, this week, more than 4 years into the Civil War? And how would you say your journalists are doing? Why don't we begin with Tin Tin Nyo?
Thank you so much. For Burma, before I just go to explain about the situation, the scene, especially about media, I would like to also explain a little bit about what are the scenes in regards to the country, political situation. So we've been under the military junta rule again for more than 4 years now. And the country situation is getting worse day by day. And in these times, in different parts of the countries, we can see that there is active fighting and also airstrikes, and then also artillery sharing. And also there are all different kinds of human rights violation happening. So that because of the active conflict and fighting, now that we have over 3.5 million IDPs. And then the human rights violation include burning houses, Some of the villages were gone just after one night, and then many people were killed. And then one recent airstrike killed about 40 people in Rakhine State. So this is pretty much mass killing and also genocide, we can say that. But that happened in so many places. At the same time, within these 4 years, then thousands and thousands of people has been killed in prison or in war zone or in different part of the countries. And the country economy is in the really devastated situation. People are in the almost in a very lower poverty situations. And so the country is leading to in many, worrisome situation. So this conflict, we don't know how long it's going to move on, and then whether it is going to be in this stage or whether it's going to be a lot worse than now. So whatever it had been, however, intensifying the fighting happened, of course, the lives of the population, the civilian, as well as the journalists who are staying with the civilians are in high risk. So, and then there is also humanitarian crisis that involved. And that's also really in the devastated situation, humanitarian crisis. And then worsening health conditions and many other aspects. So that when it's come to the media, for the independent media, we can see that from 2010 to 2020, there is some development in the independent media. And also there are many journalists and professional journalists has been trained, and they also pursue journalist the career because they like to promote media freedom and the freedom of expressions. But after the military coup, so the country is now in a worse situation when it comes to press freedom. So in 2024, and Burma is already in the 171 in the World Press Freedom Index. So and then also when we look at to the the country who is jailing, imprisoning the journalists. The Myanmar is second to the China, imprisoning the journalists in the country. So second worst country that we can say that. And also internet shutdown has been very frequent, as well as there's also an authorized VPN law that also happened. So this cybersecurity law really penalizing the use of VPN. So this VPN also really restricted. This cyber law really restricted people access to information, and then also freedom of expression as well. So that's this is really giving so many different kinds of difficulties to the journalists. Journalists are reporting from the ground where there is no internet access, and then where there is no electricity. But they still have to do the news reporting out of all those odds, all those situations. So they have to move to different villages or different townships to get access to internet or to get access to electricity. So during crossing those different townships, there are lots of checkpoints and lots of places where the journalists can be checked and can be arrested, imprisoned, or shot in the on-site. We can say that. So that these are within the situation where the journalists are doing their news reporting. But if they are staying in the other countries, the situation is also not that bad, not that good. They are still facing with different kinds of safety and security concern. And there is always involved some sort of instability, no matter where they are living. But what I appreciate the most, and I'm proud of working with the media, is that they are still very strongly resilient, and that they are still strongly standing to continue news reporting so that the people can stay access to information, the people can be well informed, will not be manipulated with a misinformation and that hate speech, and then these people can be can actively involve and can help shape the decision making of the different political leaders that would serve on behalf of the people interests. So I think that's why the role of the journalists are very important, but at the same time very risky, but at the same time they are very resilient. So thank you.
Right. Thank you, Tin Tin Nyo, for that great perspective. Nan Paw Gay, maybe we could turn it to you.
Thank you. I think did you also mention a lot of important points. So in Burma, as we know, Myanmar has been in a nationwide civil war for more than 4 years. But as I understand that the armed conflict has been going on for more than 70 years. So the situations in the ground today is insecure for the people, and also the survival is very difficult. I mean, all the civilians, and also the freedom of expression was lost. In particular, our journalists have been moved from the control area of the military council, we call regime, to the liberation area, where is the ethnic resistant groups control, to report the real situation on the ground for the audience. So they relocated to the ethnic revolutionary control area and a border area. We mean not only the border area, I mean, since that in Thai-Burma border and also India Burma border area, especially in these are based for 4 years. So they are the news operation in the or broadcasting there. So those who cannot move from the original location has to work secretly and also quietly as a low profile inside the country. So as Agent mentioned, is that our ethnic media also started as exile media, and then we are going back to the town, and also can alien understood the coup. They are to share information that happen in nearby areas or their village, and also video clip to the independent news since the coup. However, they are also concerned about the security when they are contacting news outlets or the journalists to send the information. Another situation is that the independent media has limited funds to operate the news production, which is difficult. In addition, journalists working on the borders of neighboring countries, they are impossible to mention their journalist's identity where is not legal work in exile. At the same time, the military council's arbitrary arrests of civilians and the ban on communications have also violated the public's right to information. Our news sources have also been less willing to speak up the media for their own safety. However, they know many information in the ground. Security is the most important for them. And the scope of our journalist coverage has been limited. So these are the summarized situations over the past 4 years I want to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nan Paw Gay. There was a bit, this is to be expected when we have some people coming to us from all over the world. There was some static on that line. But what I took from that I think is so interesting is around how, you've talked about the security situation and the impact it has on journalists, the limited funds that independent media are working with, also the arbitrary arrests of civilians and how that has made civilians less or perhaps more reticent to talk to the media. And so that then limits the scope of the stories that the journalists can tell. So thank you very much for your introduction and setting the scene. Over to you, Aye Chan. I know that you're based in Oslo, but can you tell us about what your people are dealing with right now and how you see the situation on the ground?
Yes, thank you. My two colleagues has already covered quite lots of really important information. Just to summarize, looking at back the last 4 years, it's a devastating and distraction. As my previous colleague said, the civil war in Burma has been happening almost 70 years. But I have never seen this level of destruction with the country by the Burmese army. In the last 4 years, the military has been targeting the civilians, not only the ethnic armed forces or PDF, but they are literally targeting the civilians. Over 100,000 homes have been burned down and thousands of villages have been destroyed. And as a result, there are millions of internally displaced people all over the country. And according to our own statistic and the research, we have found 50,000 people die during the last 4 years. This is a devastation, like disaster result. And it's not even a conflict that is involved foreign invasion. It's basically the Burmese army attacking their own people. And it's not related to ethnic or religious, but it's only related to power. Just to grip on their power, they are destroying the whole entire country. And in between that, the journalists, of course, have to do their job to cover the stories. And as my colleague said, over 200 journalists have been arrested during the last 4 years. And 50 journalists remain in prison. And it's the second highest number of journalists jailed in prison after China, according to the Reporter Without Border. And the military is becoming more and more sophisticated in terms of intercepting mobile phones, internet, social media pages. And we've seen a lot of journalists and even civilians who are promoting or taking their right of freedom of speech being detained. Every day in the government newspaper, we've seen people being arrested because they put likes or thumb up on the different posts that are talking about politics or anti-military stories. And that's how the detailed the suppression of freedom expression are involved and happening in Burma. But even in the face of this kind of situation, the journalists are still doing their job, not only in the cities and town, but also in the conflict area. We have to do our job. Otherwise, people would know what's happening in the country.
That's such a powerful way to wrap up. We have to do our jobs, otherwise people won't know what's happening in the country. Of course, my next question: what's happening in the country comes at a time where there is so much happening in the world. The coup itself, February 1st, 2021, happened at the height of the global COVID-19 pandemic. In the years since, we've seen Russia's invasion and subsequent war in Ukraine, a growing humanitarian crisis in Sudan, and of course the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza, as well as the return of Donald Trump to the White House. So I'm curious to hear from you folks, to what degree does it feel like the global community is not paying attention to Burma? And what is at stake if this disengagement persists? And maybe we can begin with Aye Chan.
Thank you, Matthew. Lack of attention means, lack of action. Because there's no attention, there's no media coverage. As I end my speech, my earlier talk, because people don't know what's going on in Burma, because there's no attention, there's no media coverage, there's no action to help and to ease the pain in the country. If you look at the last 4 years. I mean, there is no schools or no universities, most part of the country. And the hospitals are like, empty because of the conflict and the bombed by the Burmese army. The economy is in a big disaster. It's going down. The whole infrastructure have been, ruined. And more than half of the country are now under the hand of the ethnic armies and the BDF and NUG. And the military has only 30% of the in their control. The conflict is growing every day, and still there's not much attention, and the people are paying the high price in the conflict. And the longer it takes, as a result, it's the people suffering, and the higher price that in the suffering is losing people life, and that's what we are seeing, and that's the result of lack of attention, and then it means a lack of action.
Tin Tin, do you want to weigh in on this? From your perspective, does it feel like this is a situation that the world has forgotten in some respects?
Yes, sadly, we have to say that the war is actually forgotten, Burma, Myanmar. Even though our situation, as Aye Chan Naing or all of us have described, that everything is getting worse, and the people are in need. And then also the young generations are losing their future. And then also the country is in full of fighting, and then grave human rights violations, and none of them is so safe in even stay in their home or outside or on the street. So this situation has been forgotten. Maybe because there are many worse than Myanmar, that is happening in the other countries in the world, or maybe for the world powerful countries, maybe they do not have enough interest of the little Myanmar, or maybe just they have so many things to cope up with, or many things to address. That's why unintentionally they have forgotten Myanmar. However, we see that it is our job to make sure that the world continue to pay attention to Burma or Myanmar. And it is our job that our leaders, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, has been imprisoned in her old age, and that she has been forgotten, but we have to make sure that she have done some great job for Myanmar. And then also there are many other ethnic minorities who has been fighting for their self-determination, a federal democracy, and they are still insisting, they are still fighting. So that we have to make sure that their resilience, their self-determination, their determination, the commitments, it has to be saluted. So we have to make sure that the world is listened to and also hearing this kind of story, powerful stories. Because we don't want, the world to see that Myanmar and the people of Myanmar are always in need, and we are always asking for help, and then without the world help, we cannot survive. It is not in that way that we don't want them to see in that way. We want them to see we are powerful people, and that we under so many different kinds of stress, pressure, and also killing, and also human violation. We are strongly resisting all those situation and all those powerful people. The current military junta, they have guns, they have everything because they can still buy fuel in order to do the airstrike against their own civilian, because there are some countries who are still selling those fuel. And they know that this fuel will be used to kill the innocent people. And then also many of the civilian infrastructure. And then this kind of selling fuel or any kind of ammunition or guns going to give the young generation with no future. But this kind of support Myanmar is getting. From this kind of attention Myanmar is getting. But why not the attention that is helping Myanmar building peace, or to get their safety. So why not help from that kind of perspective? And then why not help, the people the people can stay in their own community with some kind of humanity, so that like they don't need to suffer, and they don't need to be degraded in different kinds of situation, and they don't need to be looked down in different from the different communities. So like I just hope that from our hard work, and also from we meet like the journalists as well, their hard work, the world is going to pay more attentions, although the world is also pretty much occupied with their own internal situation, which we know, but we also appreciate that there are still many countries who still support, and many people like you also still supporting, who has interest and also pay attention to our own cause. And we really appreciate, and we thank you from our bottom of our hearts to everyone who is there helping us. Thank you.
Thank you, Tin Tin Nyo. One thing that you said that I think resonates with me, and I think probably resonates with Sam and the folks at the Interpares Burma team, as well as the other panelists, is you said we are strongly resisting, and I think that is very clear. Nan Paw Gay, can I ask you the same question? Do you have this feeling that that the community beyond the region is no longer paying attention to what's happening there?
Yes, Professor Matthew. So I would like to get back to the coup time, because the military took advantage of the COVID pandemic to seize power. However, the people in the whole country revolted against the coup. Initially, they protested peacefully, although the boycott, the coup, the military violently cracked down on the protester. It was forced the protester to join the armed uprising. So during 2021 and 22, we can see the emergency aid, the humanitarian assistance, and also the supporting for the public service announcement to educate the people who are feeling not sadly, and also mental counseling to the people who are provided. Although the role of media is said to be important for the country, but the amount of anti-aid funding is quite small. However, with the Russian, you mentioned that the Russian invasion in Ukraine, the war in Gaza, and also the humanitarian crisis in Sudan, aid to Burma was not a priority. It is very sad for all of our people. And then when the new US President Donald Trump came to power, he cut off their foreign funding, which has both directly and indirectly affected to all of us. But I don't think it is not the global community that is losing interest in Burma. The major country, only just a major country that has been providing aid, are not paying much attention to our country at the moment. So Burma is also a small country in the Southeast Asia and has been suffering for the negative effects of the military dictatorship for decades. Burma is a country where many ethnic groups live. The political aspect of these ethnic groups are really interesting to study for you. And the conflict between ethnic groups are also due to the strategies and systematically that the military has used to monopolize power and divide the ethnic groups over the years. However, I think some other countries in the world, including Canada, European countries, and some Asian countries, are still interested in Burma. Therefore, we must continue to do more advocacy and also awareness discussion for our country and our people, like this panel discussion, I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nan Paw Gay. You made an interesting point about the return of Donald Trump and his decision to sort of cut off US aid. I wonder if we see a country like China having a growing interest or a growing attention to Burma and what that might mean. Tin Tin Nyo, can I ask you to weigh in on that?
Thank you so much, Professor. So after the president of the U.S. Foreign aid cut order came out, there are so many speculation happen. So that like, what is going to happen? Who is going to fill up? Which country is going to fill up the gap of the funding gap because of the U.S. foreign aid cuts or suspensions? And also like there are also some kind of discussion that whether China is going to come in. So in that case, how the independent media are going to react or going to respond. But these are all unofficial discussions and speculation coming in. And for me, it's like I confidently believe that the media that I know is not hunger for any kind of like money going to come from whoever. We are going to grab it and going to survive it. I don't think that is what the independent medias are going to be. So like even if the Chinese show their interest to come in and to kind of like manipulate the Myanmar media from their interests, there's still be many independent media who are going to resist and then refuse to get the support or funding from them. And then they will continue to survive by themselves. Because if they are easily manipulated, there wouldn't be any kind of exile media or independent media emerge in the beginning. So I trust that our media, independent medias, are working with like an ethic, and then they know they are being accountable to the people of Myanmar, and they are also actually serving to the country as part of the fourth pillar, as the role of the fourth pillar, and also helping the country to transition into a federal democracy. So that is my my views on the current situation. But for the foreign aid cut from the U.S., of course, it's impacted a lot to the independent media as well as other humanitarians and also other development work. Because like, of course, we have to rely on the donors' fundings, because after the coup, all different kinds of incomes from like advertisement or others platform, we lost everything. And then we independent media have to restart our operations, everything from the beginning, and that most of them, so that like we cannot really focus on making arrangement for self-generated incomes, or to, but this time we are exploring to look out for many funding opportunities. We are also getting having some sort of coordination plan that how are we going to work together to minimize some costs, but to continue the news reporting effectively by following our own editorial policy and then the media code of conduct. So at the media and then the media organization, including BNI and also DBB, we are trying to find ways to survive, then so that we won't be easily manipulated by any powerful country coming with like lots of money. So, but what we are looking forward is the country who will come and respect the independent media and press freedom, and then support the media survival. So we will respect and we will welcome to those kind of countries to fill up the gap, the funding gap. Thank you.
Thank you, Tin Tin Nyo. I'd like to move now to a question specifically about the journalists, and I'm aware of time, so you all have so many interesting things to say. I feel like this panel could go on all day, and we'd still have lots to learn. But a question that I want to ask, and I'm going to start with Nan Paw Gay, because I had an opportunity, and I showed that picture earlier of me working with your newsroom, the Karen Information Center. What can you tell us about the risks that journalists are facing right now to report on the war? And maybe building off that, what are the impacts on them psychologically and emotionally as they undertake this work?
Yeah, the news production industry requires goes going to the ground and gathering information. So if we are not in the ground, or we don't have a network in the ground, there are no image or the footage to report the people. So it requires good electricity to write and send the news story. It's also required for the communication. At least there must be good camera. If it is difficult to bring the camera, so we are using the phone to get the picture. And also the reporter or the journalists also require for them the computers for news recording. And all the journalists must have safety, because they must not consider victims of the politics and civil war. Sometimes the military council, they targeted to the journalist as a enemy. So the journalists work in a completely opposite environment in this situation. Not only themselves, but also their family members are also at risk. In this situation, there are a lack of justice and rules of law. So producing news of the public is under a lot of pressure. So our journalists, they have a family pressure. Some journalists they stop working with the media because of the family worry for their security. So another point is that the pressure of living in insecure communities. In our country, during the 4 years, we are worried which person is the best friend and who are the enemy. We don't know. So it is insecure community and extremely pressure for the survival. And also the work of the media is as a state-led person. We are where we are in the relocation area. So this has both psychological and physical effects, and it is also a job that requires motivation to the respondent. I mean the people who we ask when we are asking the questions to them. So we need to motivate them first, and then to build in the trust to respond to the journalist. So our journalists also feel more stressed, not only their security, but also when the people are very difficult to survive. When we ask them their situations, they thought that the journalist came to ask is means to help or support. So the journalist is more stressed to get it. And during the Civil War, there are hundreds of armed groups already. Aye Chan Naing mentioned that there are many armed groups and different forces in every region, while each side is guarding against the leak of military strategy. Journalists also went beyond the bounds of media ethics to obtain and record the news, especially when we reporting on war. They had to travel to the conflict zone and also connect with military sources on the ground. The current civil war situation is armed conflict in the ground, airstrike, and drone attack in everywhere. So we need to be careful. As a journalist, so journalists themselves can be on this situation, they can be injured or killed while they are traveling to gather information and also reporting the news to their newsroom. Therefore, they have to be accompanied by trusted revolutionary groups in the area they visit. More than 4 years since the military take power, 7 journalists have been killed and over 200 journalists have been arrested. It is already mentioned by the Aye Chan Naing. So although most of them have released, but it is still in the prison. So 11 of those remain in prison have been sentenced to over 10 years, it's including one female journalist who was sentenced to life imprisonment. It is very, dangerous for the journalist who covering the story, who gather information in the conflict zone. So we can say that in every area in Burma, the whole Burma are conflict zones. So we should be careful, and then we need to have in the newsroom, we should have the safety and security policy, and all of the journalists and all of the staff should aware on this policy and follow this policy to gather information and news production. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I am conscious of time, but I do want to bring Aye Chan into this conversation for a moment because, you know, earlier you spoke quite eloquently about the experience of exile, and I wonder if you could illuminate that experience and the impact that it's had on you and other journalists like you over the past 4 years.
You know, even that we are like operating from the exile. We kind of more like a local media or the hybrid, because we can't survive and do our job from exile. We have to rely on people on the ground, our colleagues on the ground. They are the main frontline, people for our organizations. I'm sure the same for Tin Tin Nyo and Nan Paw Gay, for all their media organization. We rely on people, our journalists, like in the cities, in the town, in the front line. The danger, the danger for journalists, like the picture that you're seeing now, is one of our journalists that was just after the coup during the demonstration. They can go out on the streets wearing, media uniform and cover the demonstration, and even during the crackdown. And he was arrested. And we also have another journalist who were also covering right after the coup. He got arrested, and they both were badly tortured during the interrogation. And one of the journalists, my colleagues, he told me that he thought he would die during that interrogation. It took like 48 hours, and the soldiers were just beating and beating and beating, almost nonstop. And they just angry about his reporting. And these kind of situations could not happen anymore. I mean, in Burma, they can't. There's no chance, people to report from the streets. So there are lots of these devastating situations. So what we have to rely these days, as my two colleagues said earlier, getting the news, doing the reporting, it's really high risk, and people don't trust each other. And so we do have to rely pretty much on the citizen journalists on the ground, because one, there is lack of communication, there's no internet, and the transportation is very difficult to go from one place to another. And then the second is the trust. We can't just simply send our reporter to the area that he or she does not know the group that are operating in that area, because they don't trust them. So we have to use lots of citizen journalists, and we have to train them. And they know the local, they know the area, they know the situation, and they can cover the story from there. So we have to kind of innovate and find, every possible way to get the information out of the country under this current situation.
Thank you so much. Uh, uh, my final question is, it's an opportunity for everyone to give a closing thought. As I say, we're coming up close to the end of the panel. What I was hoping is to ask this: given everything that's happening in Burma right now, as well as all of the issues we've covered today, I'm curious about what signs of hope or optimism you cling to. Tin Tin Nyo referenced earlier the deep strength that people have, the resilience they're showing. But I'm curious to ask each of you what signs of hope and optimism you cling to. Perhaps we can begin with Nan Paw Gay.
Yeah, sorry. I think you can, Tin you can start before me.
Okay,
Yeah.
Tin Tin Nyo, please start. What's giving you hope these days?
Thank you so much. I think like even if there is no special moment that giving me hope, but because when we started this journey, we already have how to say hope where which we can one day get it. I mean like a country which we would like to build as that's respect the individual and respect to the humanity and also love peace. So that is the thing. But for this day is like even though the country is in a many war situation, we can see that many resistant groups keep fighting, and then they are winning, and they are taking over some of the military posts as well as like some townships. So some states, almost the whole states are under the resistant groups. So this shows some sign of hope for us that we are going to win sooner or later, because like even though the country when we say it's like the military junta is still like representing the state, but actually they are losing more and more township and also more and more power, like and also like people they are already illegitimate how to say junta from the perspective of the people, but they are still in power. But at the same time, the resistant group are also gaining more power and more control, and they are also in their own states, and they are actually having their own local governance and their own like systems and power structure and like that. So and then those states they are started, we can see the emergence of not just the local governance, but also how to say there's some kind of uniform, kind of unifying like effort where they are starting to talking about and demanding about bottom-up federalism. And then it was, that kind of preparation in the state. So we can see this kind of political development and this kind of progress as a hope for me. And so like when sooner or later we will get it, but the only thing we need is like all different kind of resistant groups or political actors against the military junta need to come out with like some sort of political agreement, and then more like realistic political directions where they can actually bring their success a lot sooner. So that is what we are expecting, that the different political leaders and the resistant groups are going to work on. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Tin Tin Nyo. Nan Paw Gay, can I ask you what's giving you hope?
Yeah, we have much expectation for the future because during these 4 years, the media also educate the people, not only the current issues, but also for the future. Because, for example, in KIC, we also, how to say, promote the local governance, like governance issues to educate the people. So the people should understand what is the policy of the organization where they are controlled. So if the people not understand the policy, they might be the problem with the organization, especially with the revolution groups. But we could not educate because we are not agree to for the coup. So we don't want to educate the people. What is the military council the policy? It also are threats and also attack and abuse to the people. So another thing is that the information
think that we,
Sorry.
oh,
Hello?
yes, yeah, if you
Oh,
just
yeah.
want to finish your thought.
Yeah, sorry, my internet connection is not stable. So, all of the independent media also reporting a fact-check report because many social media platforms they might be trust in every channel. So we are worried the information is impact for the people as a poison. So we need to also try to the media and information literacy workshop for the people or for the stakeholder, not only the NUG, but also all of the stakeholder to understand what is the media ethic and also what is the media policy in each of the organization. According to my experience, we are in 2024, the Independent Press Council Myanmar also stakeholder meeting with the KNU, IEC, TNLA, and also two MON revolution groups. So to understand, so and also at the same time, we want to we want to do safety for the journalists, and also we have a code of conduct and how to say, we have the code of conduct at the same time. The other point is that to network with not only in Burmese people, but also in the neighbor country, they have the media. So the people to people networking and also media, the Burmese Myanmar media, and also Thailand, and also we have more network with the media council and media outlets, and also the journalists together in the cross border. So as you know, we have in online gambling in the Thai-Burma border. They are covered by the not only Myanmar independent media, but also the Thai media as well. They cover and they try to contact with each other and share information. This means it's a good thing for the country to share information, and also for the future. We hope that we are networking by the media, not only the G2G, government to government, but also people to people networking is important and strong for the future of all of the country, as I understand like that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Nan Paw Gay. We are a little bit over time, so we will wrap up very shortly. Aye Chan, it's maybe a bit unfair, but can I ask you what gives you hope in 30 seconds or less?
Yes. You know, if you see the whole situation in Burma, there are lots of devastation, there are lots of destruction, and there are lots of children who lost their parents. Hundreds of thousands of children lose their life, also their parents, and the whole civil war is happening. But then at the same time, if we are turning our back on them, who is going to do that? And the hope is pretty much depend on the belief. We believe in freedom, we believe in justice, and that will prevail. And that's our hope that will keep us going.
Those are great words to end on. We believe in freedom, we believe in justice, and that's the hope that will prevail. So thank you. Nan Paw Gay, Tin Tin Nyo, Aye Chan, thank you so much for taking my questions today. I'm going to turn it back over to Samantha.
Thank you so much. I'd like to close by thanking our wonderful panelists who have joined us here today and who have shared with us so eloquently, along with their wonderful, inspiring organizations who are working so tirelessly to inform their communities and the world about realities facing people in Burma and about these struggles for freedom and justice. Thank you as well to Professor Matthew Pearson for your interviewing today, as well as your many contributions to this work. Thank you as well to our technical team, to Nick and to Steve. And I'd like to say to our audience, if you'd like to learn more about Burma and about the courageous work of Interpares' partners and to hear work from the ground, please visit the websites that are featured here. The URLs are on the screen, and links will be in the chat shortly. And I'd also finally like to thank Global Affairs Canada, which has been supporting Interpares' work in Burma, Myanmar for 30 years. We're so grateful for the support, and we're honored to ensure that Canadian taxpayer dollars are supporting this incredible work. Interpares also has a donor base of several thousand individuals who help make this work possible as well through their financial and political support. To our audience today, thank you so much for coming, for learning more, and for being a witness to the revolution that our colleagues here are bravely documenting and co-creating. If you can, please continue that witnessing by sharing with others this panel's recording and by talking about what you've learned here today. I hope you have a great day. Thank you.